Hello, this is Mrs. Alcala at Cy Ranch High School, and I'm just going to go over some solving equations with you all to make sure you remember all these wonderful steps so that you're ready to go when you join us in the fall at Cy Ranch. So we're going to start with a simple two-step equation. 2x plus 3 equals 15. And hopefully you remember we're going to solve for x, move everything to the opposite side of the equation. So I'll start by subtracting 3, and I get 2x equals 12, and then divide both sides by 2, and x is 6. Pretty easy matter of checking your work by plugging it back in. 2 times 6 plus 3 should equal 15. 12 plus 3, yep, that works. We're good to go. Okay, so there's a two-step equation. I'm not going to spend too much time with that because I'm hoping that you can remember how to do this yourself. Sorry for the big dinging in the background. It's kind of annoying. Okay, let's try one a little bit more complicated. Let's do 5y minus 3 equals 2y plus 12. So think about it for a second. If you remember, you're going to want to bring all the variables to one side of the equation. So typically, you don't always have to move things to the left or always move them to the right. You usually want to move them all to the side of the larger value variable. So I'm going to go ahead and subtract 2y from both sides, and that'll leave us with 3y minus 3 equals 12. Then we're going to add 3, just like we did on the last problem. Solve it from there. 3y equals 15. Divide both sides by 3, and we get 5. So you're going to notice these equations that we're doing are building. Each one gets a little bit more complicated than the one before that we looked at. So here we just had one extra step of combining our variables, and then we'll go back to a two-step equation. And again, you can plug this back in for y. Just double check, make sure the right side is equal to the left side. Okay, I'm going to try one now. Go ahead and put it over on this side instead of erasing. We're going to do 3, and then in the parentheses, we're going to have 2a plus 7 equal to 13 minus 2a. So what do you do when you have a set of parentheses here? Well, you actually have a couple of options. You could divide both sides by 3, which typically most people don't think about. And then in this case, if you'd be left with some ugly fractions, so we won't do that. We're going to go ahead and distribute. So we're going to multiply both terms inside by whatever's on the outside. So we'll have 6a plus 21 equals 13 minus 2a. Remember what I told you about these building on the previous problems. Well, look at this one. It looks a lot like this one that we just did, where you have variables on both sides. So for some reason, I keep making problems that we're always moving to the left, but that's not always the case. Notice a lot of my freshmen come in and they're just so used to doing the problems the same way every time. They don't really think that they can, switch things up a little bit. So again, keep in mind you can always move things to the right instead of to the left. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and just finish from there. Take away 21 from both sides. And get 8a equals, get your calculators out. That should be negative 8. Divide both sides. I probably shouldn't have said that. You don't want to use your calculators unless you absolutely have to. So hopefully y'all know that you're going to subtract these because positive 13 and negative 21. So that's going to give you a negative 8. Some of my freshmen come in with really bad habits of always using the calculator for everything, and then they forget how to simply add and subtract and divide. So try to make sure you're keeping your skills up. Keep your hands off your calculator unless you're going to check something, especially on a test if you want to check something on the test. Okay, let's try a couple more. This one is 12 equals 4 minus 2x minus 3. Now, I threw this one in there because a lot of the time, my kids will try to take 4 minus 2 and tell me this is 2. You can't do that. You have to distribute. because this 2 belongs with this little family right here. You can't just rip him out of his family and throw him to somebody else. So he's got to get distributed, or she, first. Then you can worry about adding and subtracting the like terms. So that's going to be negative 2x plus 6. A negative times a negative is going to give you a positive. Okay, and then this 2 times the x, that was a negative times a positive, so it stayed negative. Okay, so don't forget, you have a number out front here. You have to distribute to everything inside the parentheses, not just the first term. Get a lot of kids who do that wrong, so watch that. Okay, now before we start dragging things to the right and the left, we want to add like terms first. So these are like terms. So that would be 10 minus 2x. Again, fingers off the calculator. We can all add 4 plus 6. Then we already have x isolated. Now here's a good one where we're going to move to the opposite side, but my x, you're going to notice, stays on the right side instead of the left. So I'm going to get positive 2, 12 minus 10. These cancel, and we get negative 2. Okay, divide both sides by negative 2, and x equals negative 1. Again, great idea to go back in, check that. So if you were going to plug in negative 1 right here, then this would be negative 4. That means I would have, excuse me,